You found us, and now you're listening to Heart of a Volunteer Veterans Podcast, where we have conversations with veterans ranging from our service time, development, family, motivation, and best practices for veterans. Welcome, and enjoy the show. Hey, all right, everybody. Hey, welcome back to another Veterans Chat here on the old podcast. Hey, I'm your host, Chris, and our co-host, our veteran co-host today is an Army veteran, a single dad, and an aspiring author. Give a HOV welcome to Tom Dunn. All right. Hey, Tom, welcome to the show, my friend. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, brother. Hey, so what's up? Where are you at, and what's going on, man? What are you doing?
I live in West Virginia, Point Pleasant, once owned by George Washington, and home of the Mothman, if you've ever heard of that.
Is that a horror movie?
No, well, yeah, they did make a movie that was based on a book, and the book was based on real events that happened here in Point Pleasant, where a couple couples were out in this place they call TNT, where they used to make TNT during World War II, and saw some red eyes and big wings that chase after. I'm dead serious. Everybody in town believes it. Chased them down, and then a few weeks later, a bridge fell down, and they saw the moth. There's a picture. They saw the Mothman on the bridge. So that's where I live.
Dude, I just kind of got the shivers, man, when you said the Mothman on the bridge. I can only imagine,
Yep.
like, dude, my eyes are watering. I got those kind of chills, bro. That's crazy, man.
Google it,
dude. I am not. No, you got to shut it down, bro, because I'm not into that kind of stuff. That's crazy, man. No, I'm going to check it out. That's nuts, man.
Yeah.
So
I'm not from here, but I'm from near here.
Right. So is that like so for your area, is that like a tourist thing? People come through there, looking at, looking for signs or taking pictures and stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. There's a little museum. It's pretty cheesy. There's a festival they have downtown every year. Draws in a lot of people. Feed has been here. There's, ins and outs. People also come here for the Sasquatch, for Bigfoot.
Really?
But it's not as well known for that.
I thought Bigfoot was over on the West Coast. Is he?
Bigfoot's everywhere.
Really?
He's worldwide.
He gets around.
Yeah. And Bobcat Goldthwait from Police Academy movies, he actually did a movie about an hour away from here in Ohio about Bigfoot.
What's the name of it? Do you remember the name of it?
No, I don't know. I've never seen it. I know he was somewhere. I think he was on another podcast talking about it. So right. I'll keep that name to myself.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to check that out too. Well, hey, Tom, this is your first time on the show, man. So for all the listeners out there, just give them like a brief background, on you. We'll have you come back on, man, and do a SOG episode. You can go a little bit deeper. But just for today, for first time on, just kind of give them a brief overview.
Yeah. So as far as my service goes, left home. I think I graduated at 17 and joined, and went down to Benning for basic or OSIT, whatever they call it. When I graduated, went to airborne school, 82nd for a year. Had a pretty rough year because I got hurt on a jump. I was married at the time. She didn't want me jumping anymore. Went to Fort Campbell, was there for a few years, and then I got divorced in the summer of 2001 and decided to re-enlist, even though those weren't my plans, but I was going through a rough period. Yeah, exactly. And lo and behold, I'm leaving for Hawaii. That's where I re-enlisted to go. Mm-hmm. Leaving for Hawaii in October, and then boom, we get hit in September.
Yeah.
And still went to Hawaii and heard stories of my buddies getting deployed to not just Afghanistan, but Iraq, and then, we're in Hawaii training, doing nothing.
Right.
And then hit Afghanistan for that year, where me and you were at, and as soon as that happened, I think I had my daughter midway through that, and made the decision. Did not want to do this anymore, and got out I got out, I think it was around May or April, something like that, and came back to Huntington, West Virginia, and thought I was done with everything. And I guess it was that way for about a year and a half.
Right.
Maybe. And I got a phone call. I was an exterminator. I had terrible service out where I was at. I was out in the boondocks of West Virginia, hunting down mice and rats and stuff, and got a phone call from a recruiter who, small tangent, he only recruits prior service, but I didn't know that at the time. But he does it because it's easy pickings.
Right.
Because he knows what's up. He called me, and I couldn't see who it was to screen the call because my screen was busted. And he says, "Hey, this is Sergeant so-and-so. I have no idea who he was. Can't remember his name." And he said, "Hey, do you want to put your boots back on?" And I immediately said yes.
So
why? I have no idea.
Did you have a feeling that you wanted to go back in before that? I mean,
I tell you what.
Did you think it at any point before that call?
Subconsciously.
Right.
And I think I can say one phrase that might describe how I was feeling at that time, because it was about a year and a half I was out, completely out. And when I first got out, moved in with my girlfriend and all that, I didn't know what health insurance was. And I think that might, I could expand on that, but basically I didn't know how life was lived as a civilian.
Right.
Had no clue.
How many years have you been in total, Tom?
I might come up on 21 before I get out, but it's been over 20 and some months.
What about your active duty time? How long were you in? That
was just short of 7 years.
Okay.
So, the rest of the time, National Guard.
Yeah, dude, that 7 years, man, that will get you programmed. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, I was the same way. It's like, insurance, and they chop your check a little bit. That's kind of you can talk about it all day long, but till it happens, you just don't know.
Yeah, you have no idea.
Yeah. So
everything else.
What was going on in this year, man, that you got out? Between.
Well, I'll tell you what, before I even got out, when I'm sitting in Afghanistan, and in my head I'm imagining this white picket fence when I get home. I'm imagining sitting behind a desk, and I go home to the wife, and, she gives me a kiss at the door, dinner's made, I sit the baby on my lap and maybe feed it or change its diaper,
while it's on your lap?
Yeah.
That's a lot of skill. That's a lot of skill, bro.
I don't know if I've actually pulled that off. But that's what I imagined.
Yeah.
And then you get home, and as soon as I get home, she says it's your turn to take care of the baby. And I've never taken care of a baby in my entire life. I do it because I wanted to be a dad. That's like my main goal in life.
Yeah.
And she just went to bed for a few months, and when I say she went to bed, I didn't see her get up.
Really?
Yeah, she would get up, but it would be when I was in bed.
Yeah.
And that was to take money. So you can already see the snowball effect happening.
Right.
Got home, she didn't want to do it. She didn't want a mother. She didn't. She started stealing my money. Of course, I didn't have a job. So I'm just sitting around drinking beer all the time. Not really when I'm taking care of my kid. I'm not that bad, but Kid goes to bed. I'm drinking beer. Go to bed. She's stealing money. Rent check bounced. And as soon as, I'm telling you, as soon as I told her, she grabs the kid. They leave me. Both of them gone.
As soon as you said the rent check had bounced?
She knew it was going to bounce. I know she had to have known because she was taking all my money. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the words were not out of my mouth. And she was picking up the kid and leaving. And I'm talking straight out of bed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, what about now, man? Is how's she doing? Did she end up having any mental health issues or anything like that?
Well, she I don't know that they were diagnosed,
right?
But it was the snowball effect for me, and all the bad luck that I was having for her got worse and worse over the next 8 years, and she passed away.
Oh man.
Drug overdose. I'm not going to speak ill of her. There was a lot of bad stuff that went on between me and her.
Yeah.
Over the kid. But yeah, she couldn't handle it anymore, and we're pretty sure it was I'm not going to say it was a suicide, but
right.
There were a lot of pills and heroin in her system.
Yeah, that's sad, man. I'm sorry to hear that, man, especially for your daughter. You know what I mean?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
So this here, man, this led you, to the National Guard recruiter is calling you, mm-hmm. And you're ready to do whatever they want you to do again.
More on my terms though.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I knew what I was doing. It wasn't very long after that phone call. Of course, he gets hold of me again, mm-hmm. and I don't even remember. It was so fast. I remember talking to him, asking him what was available, what type of units. I said, I'm not road marching anymore.
Right.
At all. And he said, well, hey, right here in your town, I lived in Huntington, West Virginia at the time.
Right.
There's right in town, right down the road is a transportation company. So all truck drivers. Mm-hmm. And, if you're an infantryman and you're walking down the road and then somebody rolls by in a 5-ton or a Humvee, who are they? They're not supply dudes. At least I'm talking about in your mind.
Right.
They're not supply guys. They're not chemical guys. They're all 88 mics, and you hate them. At least I did. Look at that 88 mic rolling down the road. They're all 80. It doesn't matter what they are.
Right.
So when he said, 88 mic, and it's right down the road, that it was golden. The seal was sealed right there.
Right.
Or the deal was sealed. Yeah.
So, what was your, could you tell a difference, man? Like, as soon as you decided, hey, I'm doing this, and you were due to report and everything else, did you have a feeling that you were kind of coming home? Or it was this is, this is going to be good? You know what I'm saying? Did you have that feeling?
It was mixed feelings, and I'd say the number one feeling was excitement. So yes,
yeah.
Yes, I knew because it was familiar, and also you hear about the National Guard being real relaxed. I'm a pretty relaxed type of guy.
Definitely. Definitely.
So yeah. I don't. I was kind of playing the game on active duty, and whatever. But coming in the National Guard, I was like, let me do this for a little while and see how it is. I didn't expect to stay in as long as I did. Mm-hmm. But I also never had a problem with it.
Right.
I never had a deep regret. Of course, you might be doing something stupid, and you're like, why am I doing this? This just isn't me. But it was never as bad. The National Guard is a completely different environment, and then that's probably a whole nother story. But it's the environment that I kind of fit into,
right.
And I didn't expect that. But and on the first day, there was a little, I could see some active duty coming back to me, mm-hmm. because people didn't stand at parade rest for you. And you're like, the way I took it is, let me see what the command climate is here.
Right.
Let me see how things are done. I'm not going to start getting stupid. I could, well within my, authority to do so.
Mm-hmm.
But let me see how things pan out. And then I see people talking to the first sergeant, and, they're calling him Bill.
Right.
That wasn't his name, but, and I'm like, where am I at? Where am I at? And then, you go home and you're like, what in the world was that? What in my first drill wasn't a drill; it was annual training. So it's the 2 weeks. That was the first experience.
Yeah.
And I went up beforehand because all this stuff is kind of happening during this 2 weeks. I go up on Advon with another fella, and he's like, "Hey, we're gonna go meet Clyde," and I can't remember the other guy's name, Matt. Turns out Clyde, I'm just a buck sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out Clyde wasn't just Clyde; he was Staff Sergeant Clyde, and it turns out this other guy was a Master Sergeant. And we're drinking, having a good time.
Yeah.
Nobody's in uniform.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this is they tell me the next day, hey, he's Master Sergeant whoever, and there's the supply guy, Staff Sergeant whoever.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, we were just drinking. And then the guy that brought me up there was a specialist. We're just chilling.
Right.
And after that, I went home from that, and I was like, man, maybe this is the place for me. This is kind of, you still have the structure. It's almost like being part of a police department, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
You got the structure. You have your platoon sergeants. You have your squad leaders. But here, let me tell you this. Okay, so they didn't know where I was going to go.
Right.
So I was a sergeant. I expected I was going to be in some kind of leadership position. It really didn't bother me if I wouldn't. So I go to they have it's kind of like an operations guy, the readiness NCO they call him, Sergeant First Class. I go to him because he's basically my only contact with this unit at this point. And I say, this is first formation before we leave out, my first day in the National Guard. And I say, hey, what platoon am I going to? Like, should I fall in with headquarters? Should I just kind of hang back and watch? And he said, well, we don't know. So here's what I do. They're starting to form up. I walk over, and I stand in the very last rank in what would be, I guess, it turned out, because the transportation does it a little bit differently, but it turns out it was a team leader slot. That's where the team leader stands. But I figure, okay, this is a leader guy. Everybody just falls in beside me, and they have no idea who I am. I don't know where I'm at. And that's how I became Bravo team leader of 2nd Squad, 1st Platoon.
By force, man. That's awesome, bro. The actual team leader is probably standing next to you, and it's like, dude, this guy's totally just took my place. He probably is the new team leader.
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know if there was one.
Right.
I don't know if they just because you got your big operations board, and here's where everybody's at. Here's their position. I don't know if they just saw me there and it was like, oh, I guess that guy's the new team. I have no idea.
That's nice.
No clue. And I was there for I don't know how long after that. Yeah, it just kind of happened. Slipped right into it.
So what's the rest of your the rest of your time been? I mean,
I decided that I'm going to keep it chill. And I know some people are against this, but I was like, I don't even care. I was basically a specialist sergeant. And I was like, I don't care about getting promoted. I'm just going to come do this once a month because I like going on state duties, going on flood and snow duties.
Right, yeah.
Never filled a sandbag, but, that's what people say. And I've stayed in the same spot and just kept it as what I call a personal therapy once a month that you get paid to do. And a lot of people have said, why don't you want to get promoted? And they're probably right. I probably should have. But I just didn't care. I still to this day don't care. I don't I don't want to get promoted.
Right.
I've stayed in the same company for the past, 14, 15 years, however long it's been.
Mm-hmm.
And what I kind of became, and this is part of the therapy. This is just a step, what would you call it? Just a process that you go through during a therapy session.
Yeah.
Where somebody's like, "Hey, Dunn, what do you, how do you do this? Hey, Dunn, we're having a class on the M240, the M249. Which one do you want to do?"
Right.
And then I quickly found out, because a lot of these guys, if they were on active duty, they're so far out from the reach of the lower enlisted that they have other duties to perform.
Right.
And I decided that I was going to do that, and I was going to be the guy that they came to for the machine guns, and how to properly fill out counseling forms.
Right.
Because nobody at my level does. They don't know how to, because they're never properly taught. So I decided I'm going to keep it fun. I'm going to keep it light, and I'm just gonna go and try to give my knowledge out to these younger folks.
Right. So, and you talked about the therapy part, and I got to tell you, man, if somebody, I think probably a couple of months after I retired, if somebody would have came up and said, "Hey, can you come up here to Dodge City once a month and teach, NSOER counseling, maybe give a PT class or something like that, just I would have jumped all over it. And I would probably still be there. Just the guy that's going in there, just opening up my kit bag and just letting people have what they need.
Yes. Yeah.
And
absolutely. Yeah. I feel you.
So let me ask you this, man, is before you did this, could you feel yourself or maybe even like see yourself, having more struggles and stumbles along the way if you hadn't have joined the National Guard and had that ability to slowly transition into, being relaxed and like you are now? I mean, like you said before we were talking, you're completely comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think going the National Guard route? Because like I said, man, I had talked to a lot of soldiers as they were getting out. Like, hey, you might want to go to the National Guard, man, and ease out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I think it's different for different people. I'm not going to say I would suggest it. Well, no, I'm going to go there. I would suggest it, and the only reason is there's programs like Try One where you do just a year. You can't go to schools or get promoted or anything, but you're just trying to transition. If you really want to be out, then you don't have to do. You could do Try Ones for the next 20 years. I'm not kidding.
Right.
Depending on the rules at the time and this and that. But I know a fella, and he wasn't transitioning or anything, but that's what he did. And he's at like 18 and a half years, and he's done Try One years the entire time that he's been in.
Right.
Except for that first enlistment.
Right.
But yeah, it was always something. I would always look forward to it. I would have my gear put together, as they teach you.
Yeah.
I would have my gear ready to go and packed. I'd get to drill, and everybody would be getting in their wall lockers, packing their gear right then. And I'm like, why aren't you guys ready to go? And they're just chill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'd pull out my canteen, and this is the first. I prepped everything before that first annual training. Mm-hmm. I prepped it all. I had my uniform. There's guys that come to drill 3 or 4 months and they don't have uniforms yet. They're in civilians. But I was so excited because I was getting back into some action. I pull out my canteen at the rifle range, that AT, and they're like, why do you have that rope or cord or whatever tied around your canteen?
That'd be cord.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
They could not, and that's kind of, me having some prior knowledge.
Right.
Or me having a spoon in my pocket, in the little the little ACU pocket when you go out. I never did it in garrison, but as soon and I would keep the same spoons for years.
Yeah.
My little field spoon. I had a company commander come up to me a few years ago. Why do you have a spoon right there? And I said, ma'am, have you ever opened up an MRE and it didn't have a spoon in it? Have you ever had the clip on your
hand mic?
Whatever. Yeah.
The hand mic break?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You ever had your hand mic break? Well, she comes to me the next day. Hey, Dunn, opened my MRE last night, and you never guess what was missing.
That's instant street credit, man. That's what you know.
Yeah, it keeps you going. Yeah, and it keeps you. It makes you want to go back for more. And you're showing people, you're giving them information, and that kind of makes, at least it makes me happy. I'm passing on some knowledge.
Right.
I'm just here for fun, but these guys, they might learn something along the way while I'm having fun.
You know, Tom, I'm trying to put myself like at your drill, like as just somebody that's getting out and thinking, you know, I'm thinking like other veterans, or probably not like veterans now, but like active duty folks looking into the National Guard and being like, you know, these guys and gals are sloppy, they're unorganized. But here's the thing, they're soldiers. And
Yes,
and that right there is one thing closer than anything else out there. And I just imagine myself being around, here I am, like maybe 26, 27. I'm surrounded by others that have served, that joined the National Guard, and we're all easing into this civilian life together.
Yes.
Like when we come together, they're a little changed. We talk a little bit. There's probably a lot of talking that goes on in the National Guard, I imagine.
Oh,
yes. Just talk. Hey, what have you been doing this last month? Oh man, barbecue, house caught on fire, this kind of stuff. So I imagine, man, it is a good process of easing yourself back in there, because the thing
Absolutely.
is, it is the National Guard, bro. It's not, this isn't, you're not the Janissary, you're not the tip of the spear or anything like that. You're the reserve.
Yes. Yep.
And the thing is, it needs to be a little more relaxed, in a sense.
Yeah, well, some could argue that it doesn't need to be, but but I think it needs to be. I think, and that's why it was perfect for me to transition.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I'd be transitioning for the next 15 years or so, but yeah, it's perfect. And you get to talk to, when I first went there, the company that I was part of had just been to Iraq at the same time we were both in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So they knew it, and some of them worked with some special operations. Others did some, they did a lot of log packs on not C-130, on helicopters.
Right.
What are the big guys called? I can't remember. Chinooks.
Yeah, the Chinooks.
Yeah, so they'd been there. They'd done some stuff, some of the older guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard a story from an old guardsman who was retired already, and he said that at one time when he was a young private, they'd come back from Vietnam, and it was weird because he was a team leader, and one of his privates was the boss of the first sergeant for that company. So it's a different environment.
The dynamic, yeah.
Oh, yeah, brothers be in the same unit, or hey, here's Specialist Joe Snuffy, and his brother is the battalion sergeant major. Happens all the time.
Right. No, it makes total sense, man.
Yeah.
I can imagine it, man, being, there's a lot of people, it's like their family, they go into the National Guard,
Yes.
And that's, it's a good thing, man. You got to have that stuff. You got to have it. Yeah.
And you're part of the community.
Right. Yeah.
You're my armory right now, right down the road. It's been there since the 1960s. Everybody knows it. They have dances in there for old people. They've got boxing matches. You always hear that. It's in country music songs.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go down the National Guard Armory for the whatever, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So it's a community thing. And then once you get into it, you start knowing. I've stood at the urinal next to the tag, the adjutant general, the 2-star general in charge of West Virginia. Met him 100 times.
Yeah, cool.
The state sergeant major knows me, probably because I'm a fat guy. I'm the fat guy with the CIB and the airborne wings.
Dude,
and he's called me at my house. The state sergeant major has called me at my house.
Does he call you Tom or Thomas?
Well, he calls me Sergeant Dunn, but I don't particularly like it. It was weird to see a North Carolina number call me, and I said, "Ooh, I know that. I don't know what's coming up."
Right.
State sergeant major. Yeah,
that's cool, man. Well, hey, Tom. You know what, Tom? I want to have you back on. I want to get you on for a SOG episode, but I definitely want to get you on, man. I want to talk about this feeling that the armory brings to your area. Because here's my thing. Back in the day, World War I, World War II, when those veterans came back, they built those communities. You know what I mean? The communities we have now, they built those. And, these structures that they built that were community driven, it kind of cemented those veterans into the community. You put hands and labor and sweat to something, and you christen it as, kind of as your own. It gets labeled, and there's a lot of veteran feel throughout communities that's being lost.
Yes.
So, our big discussion now is if the generation now is not using the VFW or the Legion as generations before, where are we? Where are we gathering? Some people are saying we're gathering on Facebook, we're gathering on podcasts, texts, phone calls, video games. I mean, you got military gaming clubs that they game every day. But we're trying to just kind of staple down the way ahead, right? And I'd love to have a conversation with you about that. And
Sure.
So maybe we can start to kind of frame that. But I would like to thank you now for coming on, man. It's been a great conversation. I look forward to a whole lot more.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, hey, man, I'll tell you what. We've gone over a little bit, but I'm gonna let you close it out, my friend. Thank you for coming on, and
thank you.
Many blessings.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
You as well. So I guess I have the last word. I've talked enough, I think. My name is Tom Dunn, and this podcast is done.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon.
Copyright Heart of Volunteer 2020.